now that we've got our slots basically working, but we want to signal when it's done, and we also want to disable that pull lever button while it's rolling. So we're going to start. It's going to take more than one video to do this, or it would be a really long video. But we're going to start by taking care of the first problem, disabling the button, and at the same time, we're going to set up the event that will signal for when a roll is done. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So the way we're going to do that is essentially we're going to, well, first of all, we're going to let main handle disabling the button. Okay, so we're used to how that works. We did it here, right? Button toggle text dot get component button. So we can easily do that. We're going to make a little function here. Be sure it's a public function because it'll get called elsewhere. Void disable lever. Okay. And I'll just go ahead and copy this and change the name slightly to make it work. Okay. Control C, Control V. There it is. But instead of button toggle text, it is button slot lever. Okay. So we let main deal with the UI like that, rather than dealing with it where we're going to end up calling this, is we're going to end up calling it from the slot roller when it actually starts. But the slot roller shouldn't know anything about the user interface. It should just do what it does, which is roll the slots. Okay. So when it needs help for something like that, it's actually going to call main. And so that means that we're going to need to public main. We're going to have to let it know what main actually is. Okay. And so when it gets to that point, then that it's ready to do this, and before we start the coroutine, we're going to go ahead and disable that lever. So we'll do main dot disable lever. Okay. And so that disables the button at the moment that it's pressed. We'll talk about re-enabling it a little bit later on. Okay. Now, the other thing we need to do is we need to set up an event, because basically what we're going to do is, we've got 3 windows right now. Each of them is going to be rolling. And when they're done, they need to sort of raise their hand and say, I'm done. And then we'll note when all 3 are done and say, okay, the whole thing is done. But right now, each roller needs to say that it is done. So we need an event to do that. Okay. And the way to set up an event, especially if we're going to put the code elsewhere, which is what we're going to do, we're going to create an event handler class in a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to, actually let me finish writing this so that my mind isn't in 2 places at once. Event for signaling that roll is done. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create then a delegate, because we don't actually have the function. We're going to delegate it somewhere else, and so we want to basically put that off, and yet we still want the thing to define. So public delegate. Okay, and notice after delegate, Visual Studio wants to put in a function signature, and that's because what we're doing is we're actually creating a function variable, if you will. Okay, and so we're going to call that. It's a void because it's an event and we're not going to return anything. A delegate could be an actual function like anything else that has a return value, takes parameters, whatever. In this case, it doesn't. Okay. And so we're going to call this slot end. Okay. And so that's it. It doesn't return anything. It doesn't take any parameters. It's just a signal. And when it happens, we don't need to pass any information to it. We don't need anything back because the handler will take care of that. Okay. Now that we've done this, we need to give it, we need to actually create the event to that function. So public event, and it is a slot roll end, but I'm not going to call it slot roll end. I'm going to call it stop roll. Okay. You notice that what I've just done is I've created a variable named stop roll that points to a function. Okay, so the type of this variable is a function. That's what a delegate does for us. Okay, so I don't actually have a body for that function, but that's okay. And when I want to call that function, stop roll, I want to call it at the end of this loop. Okay, so that's pretty easy. But I want to be sure that we know that it is this iteration of stop roll. Okay, and that's basically it. That will now send the event and say, hey, we're done. We're at the end of the loop. But to get it to fire properly, because this is a coroutine, if you recall, then we need to use the yield return. But in this case, since I don't need a delay, I can just say no. Okay? And that'll take care of it. Okay, so what we've done here pretty quickly is we've created an event. We've posted that event at the end of the loop that does all the work, so that when the loop is done, we signal that we're done. We use the yield return null because this is a coroutine, and so it needs to do the yield return to finish up any work that it's doing. Okay, otherwise it just kind of hangs there. And it's null because there is no delay time to it. Okay. Stop roll does not have a body. It is a delegate. Okay, and we haven't written the delegate yet. That's what we'll come back next time to do. The other thing that we did was we made sure that when this was done, or that when it started, so before it actually calls the coroutine, it should disable the lever. And we wrote that code in main. Okay, and so it should all work just fine. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to save these both. File, save as, and see how badly I messed up with the syntax again, because that's usual. Nothing found there. Let's go here, see what the console tells me. Console seems happy so far. Something new though, look. Now it wants to know main, and so I want to be sure and drag main over into each of these. Looks like they're already set up, but I'm just going to be sure. Main and main. Okay. That way it knows what main is. Okay. And we don't have the event set up or anything like that, but I think it should run at this point. Okay. So now, when it's run and I pull the lever, and you notice it disabled the lever, and then it ran, and then I get an error. Let's see, object reference set to instance of object slot roller, roll slots. Okay, so there's a problem there. And let's see, slot roller, roll slot, object reference not set. Okay. And this is in script, excuse me, I'm looking for where it is. Move next, roll slot, D11, move next at asset script roller CS64. 64. Okay, so let's go have a look. 64. Oh, in slot roller, being the right one. Okay. 64, this dot stop roll. Did I not call it the right thing? Or did I? Stop roll. Stop roll. Okay, so all it's telling me then is that it reached the end of those and there was nothing, there's no stop roll. In other words, there's no variable there. Okay, so oops, it needs to get that fixed and we will take care of that. Let's see, slot window, script is slot roller, slot roller, slot roller. Okay, so those are all fine for that. What it's not finding is it's not finding the actual code to raise the exception. And we will deal with that in the next video. Okay, so talk to you then.